Okay, 7 o'clock, here we go. Does anybody have a report from last week's assignment? Okay. Well, so then what we'll start with is, I want to start with something Nikki and I were talking last week, and she brought up something that probably most everybody has experienced, and I know I have. I have, over the years, I don't know how many people in my life fit into the things I'm about to say, but what about a person who says, I'm spiritual, but not religious? Church is full of hypocrites. Have you ever heard that? I have heard that. I have heard that more than once. Now there's a second person. These are from real life people, okay? There's a second person says, I'm a Christian, but walked away because of a church hurt 20 years ago. I've heard that. Now, I personally lump these into the same category. These two have heard them both, and I think if you look at them, they're really kind of the same thing. I'm a Christian, or I'm spiritual, but not religious. Basically, I don't go to church. But let's break it down even further. What are they really saying? They're saying, I'm spiritual, but I don't serve. Think of it like that. I'm spiritual, but I don't submit. I won't come under submission because I have been there before, and it got me pain and got me hurt. I've always tried to be instructive when I talk about things that have happened to me. I could fill out a page, not with big letters, but with kind of small letters. I could fill out a page of the things that have happened to me by church people. But I'm still here. I'm still here. And I hope that I usually have a smile on my face. Not always. But, I thought of it like this too. So when I was around 12 or 13, I can't remember now. I went into a hospital, or I went to the doctor's office. I don't remember which, but I went in there to get treated for something. Don't remember what. Got treated, whatever it was, and I walked out of there with something I didn't go in with. And I had to go back to see my doctor, and he, ran the tests and everything, and he came back and said, well, you've got a staph infection, is what he called it, and said that I had gotten it, because we tried to figure out where, I was a little kid, where I could have gotten it, and we figured it out. I got it, I had to have gotten it from his office or the hospital, and I can't remember now. It's been a long time. But the point is that since that time, I have gone back to the doctor's office. I've gone back to the hospital. I've had to numerous times. I've had numerous broken bones, numerous dislocations. I got to thinking about all the dislocations I've had. It's kind of crazy. I used to play a lot of basketball. That's where most of them came from. I've had so many things. It's a wonder I'm standing before you. It's a wonder I'm alive. But I had to go back to see a doctor or the hospital. I've had numerous surgeries over the years. But because I went into a medical facility and came out with an infection, I didn't tell you the rest of the story. They told me then, they said, you'll never get rid of this. And I've been challenging God about this because they told me, you'll never get rid of this. It's going to come back. It's going to come and go through your life. You're going to have to learn to deal with it. So far, that's exactly what's happened. In fact, we were supposed to start this class 2 weeks ago, and I missed this class 2 weeks ago because of that very reason. And I've learned that when it hits me, when it comes back, I just lay low and, I just lay low, basically, is what I do. And there's a few things I can take that help. But I went to a place to get help, and I got something I didn't, just an innocent little kid. I mean, as innocent as I could be, I guess, and got that. Well, come on. To me, that's something that you can use. That's a tool that you can use right there. My testimony. And you may have a testimony similar to it. In every career field, in every situation, somebody's not right. And my list of hurts that have happened with church people, okay, that have happened to me over the years, they were from people who were not right at the time. Now I remember some of them pretty clearly. I wish I didn't, but some of those hurts. But the point is that some of the times, maybe a lot of the times, the people who hurt me, and I've been hurt pretty hard a number of times, they weren't right when they did what they did. And I've had some that have apologized since. I've had a number that have apologized to me since. One didn't apologize, but about 2 years ago asked me to take over his church. So I kind of took that as vindication. Maybe I'm a little liberal on my thoughts here, but I thought, wow, I'd take that as an apology when he asked me to take over. And it was a nice church too, by the way. Good, strong church. But I wasn't interested in that. But my point is, you get my point. So this is something we can use. The thing is, I'm spiritual, but I don't go to church because church is full of hypocrites. Well, Scripture says that we are all going to have to overcome. And I've had to overcome some pretty hard hurts. And I know when I've brought up some of these hurts, I've tried to do it in an instructive way to be helpful and still do. But there's some things I've not, even though I've told this church over the years I've been here, I've told this church a lot of things about myself that have happened to me. But I haven't told you everything. And some of them I just can't. I just can't tell. But I have to overcome. I've got to be an overcomer. And I also realize that those hurts came from somebody who wasn't living the life correctly. And so you can use that yourself when you talk to somebody that brings that up as an excuse. And when it comes to some of this stuff, the Scripture says we're to sacrifice our life for Him. It's your reasonable service to be a sacrifice, holy sacrifice. It's your reasonable service. And so, nobody has to pull me by my hair to get me in church, even though I've been hurt by people associated with the church. I'm talking about people who check the boxes. They look right. The last time I think I preached here, I preached a sermon, are you a praiser or a worshiper? And I gave you the difference between the two. And praise is important. Praise is good. But if you're just a praiser, if you're not a worshiper, if you don't prostrate your soul in submission and obedience to the cross, then you're just a praiser. You can be juking and jiving for Jesus like nobody's business. But if you're not in submission and obedience to Him, you're just a praiser, and you're not a worshiper. And I want to be a praiser, but I want to be a worshiper too. And so some of these people just were checking the box. But we're supposed to serve Him. So if they're not coming at all, how can they be in service? And here you can ask them some questions. For these people who say, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. Church is full of hypocrites. I was hurt in church. I'm not going back. And I haven't been back in 20 years. Well, I would say, what are you doing for Him? How are you serving Him? Are you actively teaching somebody a Bible study? Are you actively teaching somebody the Word of God? I'm going to guess you're going to get crickets. That's my guess. In most cases. Sometimes people use these excuses to hide behind. For instance, I've had some people, church is full of hypocrites and I've tried that and I'm not going back. But I knew the person and I knew their lifestyle and I knew that they were in sin and they were not willing to give the sin up. They weren't willing to change their lifestyle. They knew if they came back to the house of God, they were going to have to live right. And they weren't willing to do that. So sometimes people are hiding behind hurts as an excuse. But I don't think we should be harsh when we talk to someone and they bring these things up as reasons why. But I think we should ask them some questions. And I think we should talk to them. Perhaps it can open some doors for you to talk to them about overcoming and sacrificing their life. And hey, I just would guess that everybody in here has been hurt more than once. I just can't imagine there's anybody in here that would say, I've never been hurt. I can't imagine that. We all have to overcome or we'll become bitter. We have to overcome those hurts. And I know, and by the way, while we're right here, the best way, in my opinion, to overcome a hurt is to pray for the person who hurt you. I don't mean just to throw up a token, check the box prayer. I'm talking about intercede for them. Touch God on their behalf. And don't say, God, slay him by the power of God. Not that kind of prayer. But seriously, pray for them that the Lord will help them and strengthen them and bless them. And I'm telling you, that will do something for you. And it will help you to overcome the worst kind of hurts I know from experience. Am I perfect at this? No, but I have had some practice, unfortunately. Does anybody have anything want to add to that? We're talking about people who say, well, I'm spiritual, but I don't go to church. I'm not religious like that. There's hypocrites at church.
I've got a niece that says, I started talking to her about the good Lord, trying to get her to come to the cross. She says she doesn't have time.
Doesn't have time. So this is where I think apologetics can come in. And I think apologetics can help with all of this. But you can use apologetics to help them to realize that you don't have time not to. Your time is running out. And what's on the other side of time, when time runs out, is eternity. And you're going to go one place. And so this can open up some doors for you when you talk to them. All right, well, let's start with lesson 2, which is we're going to talk about misconceptions in lesson 2. I think each lesson gets better than the previous, in my opinion. I guess I need to hit the button here. Did I do that? Okay, there we go. All right, so in this lesson, we're going to look at 4 of the most common misconceptions that non-Christians have concerning Christianity. So many Christians actually agree with these 4 erroneous statements that we're going to discuss. So that's why we're going to look at them. The first one is you got to prove it scientifically. I'll accept it when you can prove it with the scientific method. Well, we need to make some clarity here. I believe, personally, now some people say you can't prove Christianity with science. I disagree with that because I've been studying it, and we're going to touch on a number of things through this course. So I disagree with that. I think science really, you can kind of prove Christianity, in my opinion. But the scientific method is another story. So the scientific method has to do with doing things like an experiment, for instance, in a controlled environment. And it's repeatable. And you can verify results. Okay, so that's a very simplistic explanation of the scientific method. We cannot apply the scientific method to creation, nor can they apply scientific method to evolution. Can't do it. So, but there's another method. It's called the legal historical method. And it's something that's used in court trials and other ways, but we use this to prove documents, especially ancient documents. It's one way. But anyway, so you must evaluate historical claims using the legal historical method of proof. So you have written testimony. A lot of times when you have a serious case, you try to get, as a defense or prosecutor, you try to get statements. You try to get them to write the statements down. So there's written testimony, and then there's oral testimony, especially in the case of a court trial. And then there's physical testimony when we're talking fingerprints, things left at the scene that tie you. Maybe your cell phone was found at the scene, those kind of things. So you have written testimony, oral testimony, physical testimony. I'm not doing very good with there we go. Sorry. So once you show a non-Christian skeptic that you can prove the Bible is true using the legal historical method, you can start to move them closer to the cross. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to move them closer to the cross. You might not do that in your first discussion with them. It may take time. Normally, I think it takes time. Misconception number 2. I can't accept Christianity because there isn't enough evidence for me to be 100% sure. Well, can you prove anything with 100% certainty? Can you prove that Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon? Can you prove that? Can you prove George Washington was the first president? Can you prove that Abe Lincoln was shot in Ford's Theater? What do you think? Can you? Well, we don't question any of these things. And yeah, we can prove it based on the legal historical method. We can prove it. There's firsthand accounts that have been recorded. There's results attributed to the characters involved. For instance, where Booth went after he did what he did, right through this county, on his way to cross the Potomac to escape. So there's a number, we can follow the trail. So there's a number of things that you can do to prove via the legal historical method. Now, if you had to have a 100% proof that you were not going to be involved in a serious accident on your way to work tomorrow, would you get in the car tomorrow? But you probably have a high probability, at least in your mind, you think you're going to be able to get in the car and go wherever it is you're going and get there safely. Because the probability is high. So in this course, we're going to talk, not tonight I don't believe, but we're going to talk about the probabilities. And for anybody that's into math, it's really interesting, some of the numbers we're going to look at and the probabilities. As apologists, we don't have to make an absolute case for Christianity. We need only show that the probability of Christianity being true is very high. And we can do that. We can really, I'm telling you, we can really do that. It is very high. There's a difference between knowing that something, there's a difference between knowing, I got to get this statement right. There is a difference between knowing something absolutely and proving something absolutely. You can come to the point where you can live as though you had 100% proof for the validity of Christianity. And the term for this is called moral certainty. If you are so convinced, and I know there's a number of you in here tonight, I've talked to you, I know you are at that point in your life. You have that moral certainty. You are so convinced, you don't even question it because He is so real to you from whether it's study, experience, both probably. There was a man by the name of Blaise Pascal. He was a French mathematician, a physicist, inventor, philosopher, a writer, and a Catholic theologian. He had some pretty cool statements that I like. Here's one of them. There is enough evidence to convince anyone who is not set against it, but not enough to bring anyone into the kingdom who will not come. And we talked about that in lesson 1 when I spent some time talking about the fool, and the Bible gives a definition of the fool. I gave it to you in lesson 1. The fool hath said, there is no God. I believe that was it. Does that ring any bells? The fool hath said in his heart, or something to that effect, there is no God. I gave that to you in lesson 1. I like that statement. He also said the historical evidence for Christianity is not absolute, but sufficient. All right, so I want you to take a look at the screen and tell me which is bigger. Quick! You've seen it before. They are the same, but they don't look the same. It looks like pink is bigger to me. Tan? Well, it's pink on my page. Oh, wow. Yeah, that does look tan. Wow. Thought I was colorblind, didn't you? So they are the same, and this illusion, optical illusion, serves to demonstrate that we can't always trust what we see or what it is we think we see. Or said another way, what appears to be true is not always true. Yeah. Misconception number 3. Truth is relative. If you believe something, that is truth for you. Oh, that is truth for you. Isn't that sweet? We talked a little bit about this in lesson 1. Relative means considered in comparison or relation to something else. Having pertinence or relevance, connected or related. So it's truth in this case, but it's not truth in this case. Anybody give me an example of something that might fit that? Can you think of anything? Easter Bunny? Well, they're not truth. What's that?
Some think that they are too. Some folks do believe in Easter Bunny.
Little kids? Well, how about something like, I'm not going to pay my taxes. I'm going to try to cheat when I do my taxes because I don't like the way the government's spending the money. There's a lot of corruption, and all that may be true. In my mind, it is true, but whatever. So I'm not going to pay my taxes. I'm not going to do that, and that's going to be my truth. You could make that statement, but Jesus said, and Caesar was not a good guy, by the way. When he said, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, he was not a good guy. In fact, he makes some of our politicians look like saints, sort of. Absolute is the opposite of relative. Absolute is independent of arbitrary standards of measurement. And, the Scripture talks a lot, I don't know if you're aware of this, but there's a number of places throughout the Scripture where it says, back in the old days, you would trade and they would pull out weights. And like if you were buying, let's say, heads of lettuce, you want to go home and make salad, you would weigh it out and they would, you'd pay based on that weight. And it said, don't carry 2 sets of measurements, of weights in your bag. Says it's a pound, but it's really half a pound so that you can take advantage. Don't do that. Don't do that. It is common in our language to say something to the effect, this is my truth, or that is your truth. We're living in a time of great societal change and upheaval. And personally, I don't think we've ever seen anything quite like this before because I'm looking at it from a big picture view, and I know that the spirit of the Antichrist is growing exponentially. And he's coming down here soon. He's going to be coming down with great wrath. The devil is going to be kicked out. Michael's going to stand up. The scripture gives us this picture, tells us what's going to happen. He has access now, and he's the accuser of the brethren. He's the one that sits on your shoulder and tries to convince you that you can't do it, that you're no good, that you're worthless, that you on and on and on. He blah, blah, blah. Let it go. Don't listen to it. In fact, I'll just throw this little, I just read a book, I don't know how I got it, but it turned out to be an outstanding book called The Chatterbox. And it's talking about that chatterbox of the devil, how he jumps on you and starts talking to you. Excellent book, and it's a quick read, by the way, too. Really good. Really great book about the chatterbox. But there's so much going on. And established truths and norms are being uprooted and turned inside out, upside down, right in front of our eyes. I just can't believe some of the things we're seeing. You know, the transgenderism and all this kind of stuff. I didn't see coming. And I didn't see people latching onto it like they are. And I didn't see that coming. But this is all a part of God's plan. The Antichrist is going to come down and it's going to get worse. And you're going to have to make your calling and your election sure. Apologetics is going to help you with that. And the Antichrist, I talked about this recently, he's known by his deceit. The scripture uses the word craft. But he is a master liar. He's the father of lies. And he is going to use deceit. He's going to deceive many, and he's going to be a deceiver, and he's going to say things, and people are not going to be able to handle the things he says unless they have such a firm grasp of this book. We've got to have a relationship with him. I'm telling you. So, truth is absolute. And so you remember when you were in school, I think probably you had, remember PE classes like in junior high? And maybe you were late getting out of PE class and you run into the science room and you pick up that, because you're thirsty and you didn't have time to stop at the water fountain when they had those and get a drink. So you grab that thinking, it's water, or maybe it's Sprite. You're not thinking it's wood alcohol, hydrochloric acid. So he takes the drinker, drinks it down, and believing it's safe to drink does not make it so. Does not make it so. His mistake will cost him his life. And by the way, this actually did happen with wood alcohol. Thought it was water. It looked good, looked right, but that didn't make it right. That's a hard lesson. Yeah. Believing something does not make it true. And the idea that truth is relative is self-contradictory. So, truth is not dependent on belief for its truthfulness. Truth is truth, whether one believes it or not. Someone who says that truth is relative is actually saying, now hold on, I had to read this like 5 times before I could get it. Maybe you're going to be quicker than me and you're just going to pick right up. But I'm a little slower, I admit it. So someone who says that truth is relative is actually saying that all truth is relative except for the truth that all things are relative. That's kind of a mind bender for me. Maybe you just got it. I had to read it like 3 or 4 times. I'll read it again just in case there's anybody like me out there. Someone who says that truth is relative is actually saying that all truth is relative except for the truth that all things are relative. They are saying, to reverse it, there is only one absolute, that there are no absolutes. That's another mind bender, and that's self-contradictory. And I think I mentioned this last week. It all just kind of runs together, but if I didn't, and I have literally used this when somebody has told me there are no absolutes. There's no absolute truth. And I always say, are you absolutely sure? I've literally said that to people. Are you absolutely sure? Because that statement is that there's no absolutes. That's self-contradictory. So, what is that? The sentence in this box. I don't have that, so let's just move on. What we're trying to do, we're talking about people that have these objections, and we're trying to move those objections out of the way and move them closer to the cross. That's what we're trying to do. And don't feel like you have to do it in your first conversation. You may have to take time, and that's kind of, for somebody that's got ADD, that can be a little tough. But misconception number 4. It doesn't matter what you believe as long as you are sincere in your faith. Have you ever heard that one? Really doesn't matter what you think or what you, but you just got to have faith. Important thing is that you believe. Oh, you just got to believe. So how would you counter this misconception? Anybody? How about believe in what? Believe in who? If I have faith, I can have faith that that light is going to save me. But that doesn't make it so. That's not going to make it happen. You're not saved by faith, but by grace you have been saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, it is the gift of God. It's not of works, lest any man should boast. Yet, that being said, faith without works is dead, being alone. We are saved by the grace of Christ through faith. But faith is in Him. Who is saved? The Muslim man with super strong faith? Or the Christian over here that's got weak faith? I'm going with the Christian over here with weak faith. Hope you are too. But we want to strengthen his faith. All right. Sincerity is not enough. If we want to go to Chicago, we could go up north here just a little ways, jump on Interstate 70, and are we going to get to Chicago? Huh? No, we're not. Not if we stay on 70. We're going to go through Indianapolis, St. Louis, I think Denver. We're going to miss Chicago. It doesn't go through Chicago. It's about 120 miles, 130 miles south. So we'll miss Chicago. So believing something doesn't do the trick. There is a way that seems right to a man, but the end thereof is death. And so we need to have some arguments that are logical arguments to counter, and that's what this course is going to give you. Logical arguments to counter those who come up with some of these misconceptions. Now, last week, can anybody tell me what the application was last week? Lesson application? Without cheating? Okay, so last week it was to approach someone who is not a Christian and try to have a non-combative, non-argumentative conversation and just ask them, disarm them with your nice smile. And why are you not a Christian? I'm asking you from an intellectual standpoint. I'm just looking for a reason why, or you might ask them first because they might think they're a Christian. So if you say, why are you not, if you start with that, you might really be starting the wrong way. But you might ask them, are you a Christian or do you consider yourself a Christian? And today that can be real tricky to do, especially in the workplace. I know that. But perhaps you work with somebody that you have a relationship with that you can just talk to them. And maybe you already know they're not a Christian from previous discussions. But the idea is to just ask them from an intellectual standpoint and do not get argumentative. Do not become combative, not in any way. Don't do that. But just ask them, are you Christian? If not, why are you not? I'm looking for your intellectual reason for that. And you can just tell them, I'm in a class and we're talking about this. And so, I'm not going to try to convert you. You can tell them that. I'm not going to try to convert you, at least not right now. But so that was your assignment last week. And so nobody did that? You did? Can you tell us about it? Oh.
And I said, I could show you in the Word of God where it says that. And they said, no, thank you.
So, in case there's somebody online watching, hopefully there is, she asked a person, are you a Christian? And the person said, yes, I'm saved. And so that she asked him, have you been filled with the Holy Ghost with the evidence of speaking in tongues? And the person didn't really answer, and that's kind of where the conversation stopped, if I got it right. So you never know. In doing that, you planted a seed. Obviously, I would say they're thinking, and you never know. They may come back to you, and they may ask you a question down the road. They may ask you a question based off of that. So I would stay alert for that. And it may be a question that is not obvious, so I would just kind of stay alert that she may or he may ask a question that would lead you back to that discussion. You may be able to pick it up at a later date. But like Blaise Pascal said, there's enough evidence for anybody who wants to, but there's not enough for anybody who doesn't want to. And I agree with that so very much. All right, well, good. So that assignment still applies. You still have homework. So look for somebody to ask, and again, be very friendly about it. Disarm them with, tell them it's a little research you're doing, and you need to ask some people some questions. And it won't take very long, and it's not, it's not going to be, we're not going to make it awkward, but I just want to ask a couple religious questions and proceed with that. So in today's lesson, the application of the lesson this week is find someone who believes at least one of the 4 misconceptions we talked about today. Determine whether someone has these misconceptions and ask the question, or ask questions such as, how would Christianity have to be proven if it could be proven? Ask them that. See what they would have to say. How much proof would you need to believe in Christianity? I don't know that I would ask somebody about the relative truth question myself. I wouldn't. And now if they brought it up, I'd talk about it. But me personally, I wouldn't probably ask that. But I like the last question. How important is it that you believe in the right thing or person? In addition, for any of the misconceptions, go on the offensive, and we don't mean pull out a sword and start slicing them and dicing them, but ask the skeptic why he or is so sure that he is believing the right thing about the issue. Ask him for his reasons. If he says, you can't prove what you believe, say, then prove to me what you believe. So I do like this approach. I don't like necessarily the words where it says go on the offensive, but that is correct, that is accurate. Turn the tables and don't be offensive, because when I hear that I think, oh, they're going to be offensive. No, don't be offensive, but do go on the offensive. It's okay to go on the offensive as long as you're not offensive, if that makes any sense. Hope that wasn't self-contradictory. But if they say you can't prove what you believe, then, well, tell me, prove to me what you believe. If he or she says that all religions are true, ask what happens if you're wrong and all religions don't lead to God. And then after you've put he or she on the defensive, share with him the illustrations and arguments and notes. Now, this little notebook, I think, is going to be very handy for you. And I hope I think everybody is keeping notes. I hope you will. Especially, we're going to get into some things that you're going to be writing down. I think a lot of it's already provided for you, but you have to fill in a few blanks. But there's going to be a few other things you're going to write down. Perhaps some books that we're going to mention here and there, which reminds me, don't go away, just a minute. Let me grab something real quick. This magazine came out about 20 years ago or so. I don't remember when. It's called Answers Magazine. And it pains me, but I'm going to lay them right here. I'll part with them if anybody wants them. It pains me to part with them. From its inception, I've subscribed to this magazine. And it is an apologetics magazine. And I get a number of magazines. I'm kind of old school like that. But there are two magazines I get. When I get them, I read them cover to cover. I really like them. This is one of them. The other one's a prophecy magazine. But this is Apologetics. It's full of articles that I get so much out of it. Very interesting about animals, about plants, about different things, and it's obviously from a biblical perspective. And some of the articles are like at the junior high level, and some of the articles are at a high college technical level. Plus, at the end of most articles, there's a link where you can go and get more information. And so I have just gotten a lot of, this magazine has blessed me tremendously over the years. And it's not necessarily for everybody. But if you're hungry for more apologetics, this is something you might want to consider, is that magazine. We have 15 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and start on lesson 3 because it's a long lesson. Yes? Sure. Yeah. Okay, where's the first one? Moral certainty? Was that it? Oh, I'm trying to find where we're at. Well, your page 4 is not my page 4. Ah, there we go. Okay, I'll reverse it. Go back one more. The car? That one? Okay. All right. Is that the only one, or is there more?
No, that's it.
Okay. All right. Okay. Is there a God? A lot of people have this question. So let's look at a couple terms first. Atheist is one who denies the existence of God or denies the existence of a supreme intelligent being. Agnostic is one who is skeptical about the existence of God but does not profess true or, let's say, hard atheism. But there is a hard agnostic. That's a term of someone who believes that it is impossible to know whether there is a God. So you have atheist, agnostic, hard agnostic. Probably the one that's might be new to most would be the hard agnostic, one who believes that it is impossible to know whether there is a God. Can anyone know? Okay. All right, so either God exists or he doesn't exist. So which is, and we kind of touched on this in the last lesson, what would be wiser, to believe he does exist or to believe he doesn't exist? So if we put a wager, this is Pascal's wager. If we put a wager on the idea that God exists, if we win this wager and he does exist, we win everything. If we lose and God doesn't exist, we lose nothing. Since this is the case, we should wager that God does exist. By the way, Pascal was an atheist, or at least a skeptic, and then became a Christian as he was diving into these things. And that's why we see his name on some of these slides, because he dove into it and made a lot of self-discovery, and he shared those with us. So let's look at several arguments for the existence of God. If we walked in here tonight and there was an 800-pound ape eating bananas on the front row, would you have a question about that? What's that? I still didn't hear. You wouldn't be in here. Would somebody have another question? Like, how did he get here? Who brought him? And who gave him the bananas? Well, it's probably a good thing he has bananas, because that might keep him off of me. But we would have some questions. Our first argument for the existence of God is the cosmological argument. The universe could not have come from nothing. The universe could not have always existed as it is. The universe could not have come from impersonal matter or energy. So, and we're going to talk a little bit about this impersonal matter and energy. It has to do with, well, I'll wait till we're going to get to it a little bit more, but it must have been created, the universe, by a personal, eternal, self-existent being. The other options don't make any sense. Why, whoops, I'm a little behind on my punching, sorry. And I think you don't need any of those because they're not underlined, right? You have all those? Okay. So why couldn't the universe come from nothing? How can nothing produce something? Give it your best shot. Anybody? How could nothing produce something? nothing would have to be something in order to produce something else, wouldn't it? I mean, as best we know, I mean, I know we're getting into some mind-bending things here, but now that's a thought there. Who created nothing? I don't know about you guys, but it makes my head hurt almost. So then nothing would not really be nothing, but would have to be something if it were going to create a universe without end. And there's that without end piece. So why couldn't the universe have always existed? So we're going to, by the way, everything that we talk about here, we're just scratching the surface. And you can go a whole lot deeper. We're just trying to give you some basic tools. You can go deeper and into any of these things. I've got books on like thermodynamics and stuff, and you know, so the first law, thermodynamics, states that matter and energy can neither be created nor destroyed. The second law of thermodynamics states that the usable energy in the universe is being converted slowly into unusable energy. So when you put the two laws together, you have a fixed amount of energy in the universe, but an energy that is depleting in terms of its usability. Now I know this is, you know, you probably might want to study it deeper if you want to. I'm just scratching the surface, so I don't expect you to, like, you know, grasp all of this perfectly. But the question is, what is the significance of these statements? And like I said, I have read several books on this, and every now and then articles in this magazine. But the universe is slowly dying. That's the point. If it has always existed as it does now, the energy in the world would have already been used up. We're going to look at this in several different ways. But everything would be at the same temperature, and nothing would be alive. All would be dead. If you look at the various aspects of the universe, and we are going to do this over this course, we're going to look at several things. The things would not be as they are if the universe was 4-5 billion years old as evolutionists state. So again, I don't expect you to perfectly grasp this. There's entire books on this. It's very interesting, and if you want to delve deeper, let me know. I will steer you the right direction. Why couldn't the universe come from impersonal matter or energy? So simply put, it had to be personal. And these are terms, these are kind of scientific terms that are used in the study of creation. It had to be personal because everything here is for us, works for us. Everything here works for us. Like time, seasons, temperatures, our ability to communicate, coordinate, to plan, to strategize. Stressors that we have, such as extreme temperatures, are not too much for us. In other words, we can deal with them, even though you might not think you can. You know, it always kind of killed me. I remember when I moved to the Southwest and lived in really hot, low humidity conditions. I don't like heat. Anybody that knows me knows I want to go north where it's snowing. I love snow. I love cold weather. I like cold weather. I can always put a jacket on. I like a fire in the fireplace. That's just me. I don't like that hot stuff. You can have the hot stuff, and I know I probably have just crossed swords with most of you. But there's always, always got to be an oddball in the bunch, right? But it killed me how quickly I adapted to that really hot weather. I mean, it was hot all the time, and I adapted so quickly to where, and I thought I was really not wanting to go because I transferred, but I thought, man, I'm just going to hate that weather so much. But I got there and I adapted to it, and it was okay. I'm not going to say I absolutely loved it, but it was okay. I could deal with it. You could adapt. But the Lord gave us the ability to adapt. And likewise, I remember some winters that were so cold and so long. I remember going up to the door and there would be half-inch thick ice all over the door. I'm talking about the inside of the door. The inside of the door. Do you see any of that in Michigan? Yeah? You say yeah? So Giwa got some of that too. I remember that. I mean, the windows, the door. I'm not talking about one window in the house or one door. I'm talking about all the doors and windows. I mean, it was that cold. We had the furnace going and a fire in the fireplace and lots of blankets. It was cold, and it's like we couldn't do anything to cut that. So you would think I would hate it. What's that?
My room in the basement had lights inside the windows.
Yeah,
And an electric blanket.
I remember that.
I preheat my bed at night.
Yeah. Yeah, we had electric blankets and stuff like that.
As old as I am, I can tell you we had it's called cold back fire, the fireplace. We had to get up in the morning, start that thing before we eat out.
Oh yeah.
Everybody would gather around it.
We had one main register, and we would always gather around that before we, as we were getting up for the day. You'd find everybody in the family. There were 6 of us. You'd find us all kind of huddled around that register. I know Sister Souter talks about when she grew up, she would just look through the walls to see what the weather was outside. You could see right through the walls where she grew up. She has some very good, very interesting stories. All right, we're winding down to the time. Let me double check where I'm at here. So the Lord's given us the ability to adapt, and everything here works for us when you think about it. He provided food and sustenance. Now we've messed most of that up, right? But He provided for us. And now we don't go out in our backyards, most of us don't, and plow and pull fruit off the trees and all that. We don't do we normally go to the stores, and we may regret that here coming up soon. You might want to start gardening, folks. But the Lord provided it for us. That's why we say it was personal as opposed to impersonal, where nothing works for us. And if you think about creation or evolution, and you think about the randomness that it could have been, where nothing worked right, nothing worked for us. And you might watch a movie. I've seen some of these movies where you like a Star Wars movie where you had to come inside at a certain time, because just like that, if you were outside after 6 o'clock, it got so cold you would be frozen instantly. I think there was a Star Wars movie that had something like that. It's not like that on Earth. At least it doesn't have to be. Not where, if you want to live on. But it wasn't that way. It didn't used to be that way on the Arctic Circle either. It didn't used to be that way. It used to be lush. We know that's proof. That's provable. Okay, we're done for tonight. We're going to stop right there. So we did just start on lesson 3. We will pick up on that next week. Does anybody have any questions? Any thoughts? Any concerns? Pretty quiet in here. If anybody online has any questions, please let us know. Lord bless everybody. Have a good night.